I remember the exact moment it all shattered, because that's the curse of trauma. It etches itself into your bones, replaying on loop whenever life gets too quiet. It was a Thursday in late summer, the kind of sticky Alabama evening where the air clings to your skin like regret. We'd just finished dinner, fried chicken from the Colonel's bucket special, because Mom was pulling double shifts at the mill and cooking from scratch was a luxury we couldn't afford. My little sister, Becca, was 8, all freckles and braids, chattering about her school project on the Wright brothers. Dad had been gone 3 years by then, truck accident on I-65, and the hole he left was still raw, like an open wound we all poked at without meaning to. I was in love. Or at least, that's what it felt like. That dizzy, all-consuming ache that makes you stupid and brave at the same time. His name was Tyler, a lanky kid from the next trailer park over, with hair the color of wet sand and eyes that crinkled when he laughed. We'd sneak off to the old quarry after school, skipping rocks across the murky water, talking about escaping to Nashville or Atlanta, anywhere but this dead-end town where dreams went to rust. One night, emboldened by stolen sips of Mom's Southern comfort, I kissed him. It was clumsy, all teeth and nerves, but it lit something inside me I couldn't snuff out. Word got around. In a place like Millwood, Alabama, secrets are currency, and teenagers are the worst brokers. By Monday, whispers followed me down the halls of Millwood High like shadows. Fairy Alex. They'd hiss, or worse, the slurs that made my stomach twist. I ignored it, mostly, kept my head down, focused on algebra and the faint hope that Tyler would wait for me after the pep rally. But Mom found out. God knows how. Maybe from Mrs. Hargrove at the Piggly Wiggly, who loved gossip more than her bridge club. Or maybe Becca overheard the kids at recess. That night, she confronted me in the kitchen, her face twisted in a way I'd never seen. Like I'd personally betrayed the flag-waving, church-going America she clung to like a life raft. Is it true? She demanded, her voice low and venomous, the way it got when bills piled up. I froze, dish towel in hand, the sink still full of soapy plates. Denial bubbled up, but it died on my tongue. I was tired of lying, to her, to myself, to the mirror that showed a boy who didn't fit the mold. Yeah, Mom, it's true. The words hung there, simple and damning. She didn't scream at first. That would have been easier. Instead, she just deflated. Her eyes, the same muddy brown as mine, filled with something darker than disappointment, disgust, maybe, or fear. The Bible says. I know what it says. I cut her off, my voice cracking like thunder in the distance. But I'm still me. Your son. Not like this, she whispered, crossing her arms over her faded Kmart blouse. Not that way. What would your daddy think? What would the neighbors say? The neighbors. Always the goddamn neighbors. In Millwood, reputation was oxygen, and coming out was like setting your lungs on fire. She paced then, muttering about sin and salvation, about how Pastor Jenkins could pray it out of me at the next youth group. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound, because that's what you do when the world kicks you in the teeth. Pray it away? Like it's a cold. Her hand cracked across my cheek before I saw it coming. The sting was immediate, hot, and humiliating. Becca whimpered from the hallway, peeking around the corner, her thumb in her mouth like she was 5 again. Go to bed, Becca, Mom snapped, without looking away from me. And then, the ultimatum. You leave tonight, Alex. Pack your things. I won't have that. Filth under this roof. I begged. God, I begged. Tears streaming, snot mixing with the blood from where I'd bitten my lip. Mom, please. I'm 16. Where am I supposed to go? But her jaw set like concrete, the same stubborn line Dad had when he dug in on a bad bet. She shoved a wad of crumpled 20s into my hand. Maybe $60, her emergency stash, and pushed me toward the door. The rain had started by then, a biblical downpour that turned the dirt yard into a mud pit. Tyler's number was scrawled on a napkin in my pocket, but I didn't call him. What was the point? He'd get the boot too, eventually. I walked. Miles, it felt like, my backpack heavy with a change of clothes, my comic books, and that damn photo. The quarry was my first stop, curling up under the overhang where Tyler and I had shared secrets. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving, and by noon, I was on a Greyhound bound for Birmingham, the only place I could think of with a youth shelter I'd read about in a dog-eared pamphlet from the school counselor. Birmingham was a shock, a bigger small town, all steel mills and soul food joints, but with undercurrents of possibility that Millwood lacked. The shelter was a converted church basement, reeking of bleach and boiled cabbage. Kids like me packed it, runaways, foster spills, the invisible casualties of American family values. There was Jamal, a black kid from the projects with a laugh that could cut glass, and Lena, a trans girl fighting for her GED like it was holy writ. They became my makeshift family, trading stories over instant ramen that tasted like freedom and regret. I got a job bussing tables at a diner off 20th Street, the kind of place where the coffee's strong enough to strip paint and the regulars tip in loose change. Nights, I'd lie on my cot, staring at the water-stained ceiling, wondering if Mom regretted it. Becca's birthday was coming up. I'd saved her a dollar store necklace, hidden in my sock drawer back home. Would she even let me send it? That's when I met Jose. He was the diner's line cook, a wiry Mexican-American guy in his early 20s, with tattoos snaking up his arms like vines and a smile that said he'd seen hell, but baked it into empanadas anyway. "You look like you could use a real meal, Mijo," he said on my third shift, sliding a plate of huevos rancheros across the pass-through. No pity in his eyes, just quiet understanding. Turns out, Jose had his own scars, deported parents, a brother lost to the border, and a coming-out story that ended with a baseball bat and a midnight flight from El Paso. We talked. We talked. About the hypocrisy of a country that preached liberty and justice for all, while kicking its own kids to the curb. About faith twisted into weapons, and love that society labeled as sin. Jose was straight, married to a nurse named Rosa, but he got it. The ache of being other. He let me crash on their couch when the shelter filled up. No strings, just the warmth of a home-cooked meal and a door that locked from the inside. 6 months in, I enrolled at community college, scraping by on Pell Grants and Jose's hand-me-down textbooks. That's where Douglas entered the picture. Freshman orientation, a muggy September day, and there he was, tall, broad-shouldered, with red hair that caught the light like autumn leaves and a southern drawl softened by years in foster care. He was studying graphic design, doodling logos on his notebook while the advisor droned on about financial aid. Our eyes met across the room, and something clicked. A spark, unspoken but electric. We bonded over coffee in the quad, him nursing a black drip, me with my usual milky swill. "Grew up in Foster Mills in Georgia," he said, tracing the rim of his cup. "Bounced around like a pinball. Learned early that love's just a lease. Expires when you least expect it." His laugh was self-deprecating, but his eyes held a depth that pulled me in. Douglas was out, proudly so, with a rainbow pin on his backpack and a no-bullshit attitude toward anyone who side-eyed us. He talked about building something permanent, a life, a legacy, maybe a business that gave back to the queers who'd been discarded. Our first date was at a hole-in-the-wall taqueria Jose recommended. We split a plate of carnitas, knees brushing under the table, and when he leaned in to wipe salsa from my chin, the world narrowed to that touch. It was innocent, electric, his fingers lingering just a second too long. "Your trouble, Alex," he murmured, grinning. "The good kind. But trouble has a way of following you." Midterms hit, and so did the first letter from home. Becca's handwriting, shaky on lined paper. "Miss you, Alex. Mom says hi but won't say it. School sucks without you." Enclosed was a photo of her in her Halloween costume, a witch, broomstick raised like a weapon. I cried in the bathroom stall, Douglas holding my backpack outside the door. He became my anchor. We studied late into the nights, his apartment a converted garage with posters of Frida Kahlo and indie band stubs tacked to the walls. Douglas had a way of making the mundane magical, turning a rainy walk home into a dance, twirling me under a street lamp until we were breathless and laughing. But beneath it, there were cracks. He never talked about his last foster home, the one that ended with a social worker's clipboard and a bus ticket. And I buried Mom's rejection like a landmine, waiting to blow. By spring, we were inseparable. Jose threw us a not-quite-anniversary party at his place. Tacos, cheap beer, and a playlist of queer anthems that had Rosa belting out, "Born This Way" off-key. To building empires from ashes, Douglas toasted, clinking his bottle against mine. Empire. The word stuck. I'd been experimenting with baking, stress relief from the diner's chaos. Scones that didn't suck, cookies that vanished from breakroom tables. Douglas sketched logos. Alex's Redemption Bakery. All clean lines and warm colors. It felt like destiny. But destiny in America means hurdles, and ours was a phone call from an Alabama number I hadn't saved. Mom. Alex? It's me. Her voice was thinner, laced with something I couldn't place. Pride? Shame? Becca's sick. Real sick. Doctors say leukemia. We need you. The line went dead before I could respond, but the guilt exploded like shrapnel. I hadn't called in months, too raw, too busy surviving. Douglas found me on the fire escape, head in hands. Go, he said simply, pulling me into his chest. Family's messy. Doesn't mean you owe it nothing. So I went. Back to Millwood, the town unchanged, me irrevocably altered. Mom met me at the bus station, thinner, grayer, her hug awkward but real. Becca was a ghost in the hospital bed, IVs snaking like vines, but her smile when she saw me? Pure light. You came, she whispered. For a week, I played the dutiful son, holding Mom's hand during consults, reading to Becca from dog-eared Harry Potters. But the undercurrents churned. Mom's apologies were half-formed. I was scared, Alex. Scared for you. This town. She'd trail off, eyes on the floor. And the neighbors? Whispers turned to stares, Pastor Jenkins cornering me in the chapel with redemption pamphlets. Douglas called every night, his voice a lifeline. You're a saint, you know that? My saint. But saints bleed, and mine started when Mom found the photo I'd kept, me and Douglas at a pride walk in Birmingham, arms linked, joy unfiltered. Her face crumpled. Him? That's what? It's love, Mom. Real love. The words echoed my plea from years ago, but this time, she didn't slap. She just cried. Silent, shoulder-shaking sobs that mirrored my own buried grief. Becca stabilized. Remissions whispered like prayers. I returned to Birmingham lighter, somehow. Forgiveness a fragile bridge. Douglas greeted me with a kiss that tasted like home, and we dove into the bakery plan headfirst. Loans from small business grants for queer entrepreneurs, a lease on a derelict storefront in the Five Points district. From kicked out to kneading dough, Douglas quipped, flour-dusted and grinning. The first year was hellfire. Oven burns, supplier scams, reviews that stung like slaps, too artsy for Southern palates. But Jose invested sweat equity, Rosa handled books, and locals trickled in, drawn by the rainbow flag fluttering proud out front. Douglas designed the menu boards, his sketches turning pastries into art. Late nights, we'd close up, dance to Nina Simone on the radio, his hands on my waist, whispering dreams of expansion. Then the betrayal hit, swift as a sucker punch. It started with a letter, anonymous, typed on plain stock. Your mother's dying. Cancer. Come home or live with the guilt. I laughed it off at first, paranoia from old wounds. But Douglas? He went pale, avoiding my eyes. What if it's true? He pressed, too insistent. I called Mom. She was fine, gardening, even dating a deacon from church. Relief flooded me, but suspicion lingered. Douglas had access to my phone, my emails. That night, I found the draft in his laptop history. The letter, verbatim, sent to a P.O. box in Millwood. Why? I demanded, the screen glowing like accusation. We were in the kitchen, the scent of cooling bread mocking our domestic bliss. He crumbled, tears carving tracks through flour on his cheeks. I thought, if you went back, you'd see how far you've come. Prove to her you're not broken. His voice broke. And maybe she'd accept us. I wanted that for you. For us. Betrayal tasted like ash. All those talks of building together, and he'd undermine me with lies? You don't get to play God with my pain. I shouted, the words echoing off brick walls. He reached for me, but I flinched. Get out. He did. Packed a bag, left his key on the counter. The bakery felt haunted after. Every logo his, every recipe tweaked by his hand. Customers noticed my red eyes, chalked it up to allergies. Jose confronted me over coffee. Douglas loves you, Mijo. Messy but real. Don't let pride bury that. Pride. The irony burned. Was I any better than Mom? Kicking out the man who'd built my empire beside me? Months dragged. The bakery thrived despite me. Word spread about the gay kids' comeback, features in local rags. Becca visited once, Mom in tow, the awkwardness thick as humidity. Smells like heaven, Becca said, devouring a cinnamon roll. Mom hovered, silent, but her eyes softened on the pride stickers by the register. Then the call, the real one. Mom's voice frail. Alex, it's bad. Stage 4. Come say goodbye. I drove through the night, heart a war drum. Millwood blurred past, unchanged. At the hospital, she was a shadow, tubes and monitors beeping dirge. Becca clung to me, tin now and fierce. She talks about you. Says she's proud. Mom's eyes fluttered open. Alex, whisper thin. Forgive me. The dam broke. Already did, Mom. Long ago, lies and truths tangled, but in that sterile room, it didn't matter. We talked, really talked, about Dad's hidden letters, her fears of losing me to a world that chewed up different boys. About love, not as sin, but salvation. She passed at dawn, the sun rising like absolution. Becca came home with me, her room above the bakery a riot of posters and baking trays. Douglas? He showed up at the funeral, suit rumpled, eyes haunted. We didn't speak then, but later, over coffee in the empty shop, words spilled. I was wrong, he said. Scared you'd leave if things got too real here. Thought forcing you back would. I don't know, anchor you. Anchor. I echoed, bitter laugh. You nearly sank me. He nodded, taking my hand, tentative, waiting for recoil. None came. Let me make it right. Partners? For real this time. The bakery fed us all after that. Mom's recipes woven in, her cornbread, adapted gluten-free. Becca apprenticed, her laughter filling the voids. Jose and Rosa became uncles in all but name. And Douglas? He stayed, his designs evolving with ours. America's not fairy tales, but in the flower-dusted dawn of our little empire, I found grace. Not perfect, but human. And that's enough. The funeral was a blur of potluck casseroles and murmured condolences, the kind of southern send-off where grief gets dressed in pastel and passed around like bridge mix. Millwood Baptist overflowed with faces I half remembered, old teachers with pitying smiles, cousins who'd unfriended me on Facebook after the coming-out debacle. Becca clung to my side, her small hands sweaty in mine, whispering, "Is Douglas coming?" As if he were Santa, not the man who'd nearly torpedoed my world. He did come, slipping in late, his red hair subdued under a black beanie, suit jacket too tight across his shoulders. Our eyes met across the pews, a current zipping through the humid air, regret, longing, the unfinished business that hangs heavier than humidity. I nodded, just once, and he took a seat in the back, anonymous among the mourners. Pastor Jenkins droned on about eternal rest and God's plan, his voice a grating reminder of the sermons that had fueled Mom's fire. I tuned it out, focusing on Becca's braids, the way they curled like question marks. After, at the graveside under a sky-threatening rain, he approached. Alex. Becca. His voice was steady, but his hands fidgeted with a program, crumpling the edges. I'm so sorry. About your mom. About everything. Becca eyed him suspiciously, the protector mode she'd slipped into post-diagnosis kicking in. You the one who made Alex sad? Kids, man, zero filter. Douglas knelt to her level, unflinching. Yeah, kiddo. I did. And I'm working real hard to fix it. He pulled a small sketch from his pocket. A cartoon Becca as a superhero baker, cape made of rolling pin, mask a chef's toque. For the bakery, if you'll have me. Her frown cracked, just a hair. Cool. But don't mess up again. He didn't laugh, just nodded solemn. Promise. We drove back to Birmingham that night, the three of us crammed in my beat-up Civic, Becca dozing in the back with her sketch clutched like talisman. The highway hummed, taillights stretching into infinity, and Douglas filled the silence with small talk. Weather, traffic, the new vegan donut I'd tested that morning. But under it, the weight pressed. How can I trust you? I finally asked, eyes on the dotted line. You don't have to. Not yet. He stared out the window, jaw tight. But let me show up. Every day? No more shortcuts. Showing up. That's the American dream's fine print, isn't it? Not the fireworks, but the grind. The lease is renewed. The ovens preheated at 4 a.m. Douglas moved into the apartment above the bakery, Becca's fortress, on the third floor with bunk beds for sleepovers that never happened. He redesigned the space, turning the back room into a community hub, free coffee for job seekers, baking classes for at-risk youth. Redemption's not just yours, he said one night, elbow deep in dough. It's ours. But trust rebuilds slow, like a bridge over bad water. Nightmares woke me, Mom's slap echoing, Douglas's letter materializing from shadows. I'd bolt upright, heart hammering, and he'd stir, murmuring, here. Still here. Mornings, we'd walk the market district, his arm brushing mine, not quite holding hands. Not in this town where progress lagged like a faulty transmission. Birmingham had its enclaves, sure, 5 Points with its murals and mics, but stray too far, and the stares returned. Jose noticed the tension, cornering me during a slow afternoon rush. He's trying, Alex. Rosa says give it time. Like tamales, gotta steam slow. Jose's wisdom was street-honed, wrapped in proverbs from his abuela. He'd expanded his role, sourcing chiles from a cousin in Texas, infusing our menu with fusion twists, tres leches eclairs, mole-infused brownies. This place? It's family. Messy familia, but yours. Messy indeed. Becca adjusted in fits, thriving in her new school, acing math, but flinching at loud voices, echoes of hospital beeps. She'd bake to cope, tiny hands shaping cookies into wonky hearts. For Mom, she'd say, and I'd choke up, because grief's a thief, stealing breaths when you least expect. The first real test came 6 months post-funeral, at Pride. Birmingham's festival had grown, a riot of colors snaking through the streets, drag queens on floats, leathermen in chaps, families with rainbow face paint. Douglas and I debated going. Too soon, he asked, lacing his boots. Becca bounced on her toes. Please, I want to see the glitter. We went, hand in hand. Finally, his palm warm, calloused from sketchpads and mixers. The crowd swallowed us, bass thumping from speakers, air thick with hot dogs and hope. Becca darted to a face-painting booth, emerging as a butterfly, wings spanning cheek to cheek. Douglas bought U.S. matching buttons. Love wins. Simple, defiant. But midway through, the universe laughed. A news van idled at the corner, reporter mic in hand, scanning for human interest. She zeroed on us, the bakery owner, his partner, the orphan niece. Tell us your story, she cooed, camera light blinding. Douglas tensed, but I stepped up. Kicked out at 16 for being gay. Built this life from scratch. Now, we feed everyone. No questions. It aired that night, viral by morning. From rejection to resilience, the cheerin' read. Orders flooded, catering for corporate brunches, shout-outs from influencers. But backlash slithered in too. Hate mail scrawled on napkins. Adam and Eve, not Steve, flyers stuffed under the door. One night, glass shattered, a brick through the window, sinner, etched in marker. Cops called it kids, but we knew better. America's progress is patchwork, bright in patches, ragged at the seams. Douglas was a rock, boarding up the window himself, spray painting a mural over the scars. Intertwined hands, loaves rising like hope. They can't break what's baked in, he said, paint flecking his lashes. That night, in the dim kitchen light, I kissed him. First real one since the betrayal. Slow, searching, tasting salt from unshed tears. I see you, I whispered. Trying. He pulled back, eyes searching. Enough. For now. Expansion whispered next. Atlanta scouts sniffed around. A franchise opportunity, queer-owned chain. Think big, Douglas urged, maps spread across the counter. But big scared me. Millwood's shadow loomed. What if success pulled me too far from roots? Becca overheard, piping up, go. Mom would have wanted adventures. Mom. Her cornbread recipe starred in our pitch deck, a nod to the woman who'd both broken and mended me. The deal closed over sweet tea in a boardroom. Suits impressed by our narrative. Groundbreaking in Midtown, fall next year. But secrets fester. Douglas started pulling away, late nights sketching, phone buzzing with silenced alerts. Paranoia crept back, a familiar itch. One evening, post-closing, I checked his browser history on a whim. Old habit from the letter days. There, searches for foster care reunions, emails to a social worker in Georgia. Confrontation brewed like storm clouds. Who's Sarah? I demanded, screen in hand. His face drained. My sister. Half-sister. Found her last year. through ancestry sites. She's struggling, pregnant, alone. Why hide it? Hurt laced my words, sharp as shattered glass. Fear, he admitted, slumping onto a stool. Of losing you again. Last time I chased family, it blew up. Thought if I fixed it quiet, no risk. The irony stung. Me, preaching transparency, blind to his ghosts. We talked till dawn, unraveling threads. His foster shuffle. A baby sister surrendered at birth, now 20 and terrified. Help her, I said finally. We'll do it together. We drove to Macon the next weekend, Becca in tow for anti-training. Sarah was wary. A carbon copy of Douglas, red hair wild, belly swelling under a thrift store tee. Her story spilled over Waffle House hash browns. Abusive ex, eviction notices, a job at a dollar store that barely covered diapers. Heard about you on the news, she said shyly. The bakery guy? Thought maybe. Family sticks. It did. We brought her back, apartment above a laundromat, job offer in the front house. Becca bonded instant, teaching her cookie cutters. Jose dubbed her La Hermana Perdida, folding her into barbecues. But harmony's fragile. Holiday season hit, our first without mom. Becca strung lights in the shop, tinsel on the ovens, but her cheer cracked one night over cocoa. Miss her songs. The silly ones. I held her, throat tight, Douglas rubbing circles on her back. Later, alone, he confessed. This, us, her, it's what I dreamed. But what if I screw it up? You won't. I lied, because fate's a choice. We made love then. Gentle, reaffirming, bodies mapping forgiveness. No fireworks, just quiet fire. New Year's brought the unexpected, a letter from Millwood, addressed to the bakery. Inside, a check, $5,000, from Mom's life insurance, earmarked for Becca's future. And a note, in her looping script, proud of you, son. Build big. Tears blurred ink. Douglas hugged me fierce. She knew. The Atlanta opening loomed, a climax of sorts, ribbon cutting with Mayor in tow, press from CNN. But en route, disaster. Becca's fever spiked, a remnant infection from her chemo days. Atlanta delayed. In that fluorescent hell, holding her hand as Doc swarmed, Douglas whispered, "We're enough. Right here." We were. Opening pushed a week, Becca rallied. The night before relaunch, family gathered. Jose grilling carnitas, Rosa leading toasts, Sarah cradling her bump. To ashes and empires, Douglas said, echoing our old vow. As confetti fell, his hand found mine. Public, proud. Cameras flashed, but I saw only him. Betrayals fade, love endures. Messy, American, ours. The Atlanta launch was a whirlwind of velvet ropes and venture smiles. The kind of event where champagne flutes clink like false promises and networking feels like speed dating with your soul. Our flagship store nestled in a revitalized warehouse district, exposed brick and Edison bulbs screaming hip, but we'd infused it with heart. Community wall for customer stories, a pay-it-forward board for free slices to the unhoused. Becca cut the ribbon, her grin camera ready, while Sarah hovered nearby, hand on her belly like talisman. Douglas and I stood shoulder to shoulder, his tie loosened, my apron still dusted with test batch flour. Mr. Harlan? A word. A silver-haired exec from the funding firm pulled me aside post-speeches, his grip firm as a car salesman. Numbers are stellar. Expansion to Charlotte? Nashville. Ambition gleamed in his eyes, dollar signs dancing. I glanced at Douglas, sketching last-minute tweaks on a napkin, his ritual, like breathing. One bridge at a time, I said, clapping the guy's back. But inside, the churn started. Big leagues meant boardrooms over break rooms, suits dictating dough recipes. Was this the empire, or just another grind? Back home, Birmingham still base, Atlanta satellite, the high faded fast. Becca's school play loomed, her role as Dorothy in a shoestring Oz production. You'll come, right? She pleaded, ruby slippers clacking on linoleum. Both of you. Wouldn't miss it, Douglas promised, ruffling her hair. But his phone buzzed constant now. Calls from Sarah's OB, suppliers haggling, a side gig illustrating queer lit for an indie press. Exhaustion etched lines around his eyes, the kind that makeup can't hide. Jose pulled me into the walk-in one rushed morning, cool air heavy with yeast. He's burning, Mijo. You too. Slow down, or the bread sours. Wise as ever, his own life a testament. Rosa pregnant again, a boy this time, dreams of a food truck empire deferred for hours. I tried. Date nights snuck in. Picnic in Vulcan Park, Douglas's head on my lap, stars pricking the dome like pinholes in fate. Remember the quarry? He murmured, fingers tracing my wrist. Skipping stones, wishing for this. Laughter bubbled, bittersweet. Wished for escape. Got empire. But the wish twisted. Escape from what now? Success's shackles? The misunderstanding brewed subtle, a slow leaven. Anonymous emails trickled in, veiled threats. Your family ain't natural. Watch your niece. I chalked it to trolls, Millwood holdovers, but Douglas? He obsessed, installing cams, triple-checking locks. Can't risk Becca, he'd mutter, shadows under his eyes deepening. One night, post-closing, I found him on the laptop, not sketches, but forums. Dark web corners, ex-gay threads dissecting recovered stories. My stomach dropped. Douglas? What the hell? He slammed the lid, face ashen. Research. For the threats. Understanding the enemy. Enemy. The word ignited. Or cold feet. This. Us. Too much for the heartland heartthrob. His eyes flashed hurt, then fury. You think I'm ashamed? After everything. Voices rose, echoing off stainless steel. Becca stirred upstairs, a floorboard creak like warning. We froze, breaths ragged. I'm scared, he admitted, voice cracking. Of losing it all. You her this. He gestured wild. The ovens, the life we'd needed from nothing. Me too. I confessed, the fight deflating like fallen souffle. We collapsed onto the prep table, heads bowed, hands linking tentative. But hiding? That's the real threat. Therapy followed, queer-affirming counselor in the village, sessions over Zoom when Atlanta called. She unpacked our baggage, my abandonment scar, his foster fragility. Vulnerability's the yeast, she said, southern twang softening the psychobabble. Douglas opened up about Sarah's baby, a boy, due spring, named after their absent dad. Want him to know family means staying, not fleeing. Staying. The word anchored. Spring bloomed. Sarah's labor a false alarm turned real. Midnight dash to the hospital. Becca dubbing herself Big Sis Instant. Little Elias arrived squalling, red-faced and perfect, Douglas weeping as he cut the cord. Our legacy, he whispered, passing the bundle to me. Legacy. It expanded. Bakery donated to Pride Centers, scholarships for LGBTQ plus culinary kids. A feature in Southern Living. Baked from the heart. Fame's double-edged, boosted sales, but scrutiny too. A podcaster cornered Douglas at an event. So, the betrayal, true? How'd you win him back? He laughed it off, but later, in the hotel, tension crackled. They reduce us to drama, he fumed, pacing. Our love's not a plot twist. Isn't it? I countered, half joking. But the seed planted, were we story or substance? Climax crashed unbidden, a summer squall. Becca's 15th birthday, pool party at Jose's, kids from her diverse crew splashing, Rose's trace leches towering. Laughter peaked, then shattered, a call from the Atlanta manager. Stores trashed. Slurs spray-painted. Go back to hell. We raced down I-20, storm raging parallel, wipers slapping futility. Sight was carnage, glass glittering like malice, walls weeping red paint. Cops milled, sympathetic but slow. Hate crime, sure, but resources thin. Douglas surveyed the ruin, fists clenched. This ends us. No, I said, steel in my spine. It forges. Cleanup became ritual, neighbors pitching in, queer activists with brooms and bullhorns. Douglas designed a phoenix mural, rising from flames, loaves and talents. Reopening drew crowds, solidarity sales funding security upgrades. But the real gut punch? A letter slipped under the door, postmarked Millwood. Karma for your mother's sins. A friend. Friend. The word curdled. I confronted ghosts, called an old classmate, now deputy. Heard whispers. Some church group, anti-everything. Pastor Jenkins retired, but his flock lingers. Jenkins, the man who'd prayed, over me once, hands heavy on shoulders. Rage boiled, but Douglas cooled it. Confront? Or rise? We rose. Press conference, me at podium. Hate breaks windows. Love bakes bread. Come eat. Turnout swelled. Families, allies, even a few repentant locals. But personal storms brewed. Douglas's illustrations took off. Book deal for a graphic novel on foster queers. Tours loomed, weeks away. Go, I urged, masking the ache. Your dream. Ours, he corrected, but doubt flickered. One night, post-argument over schedules, him in NYC, me in court for vandalism suits, he packed a demo bag. Space. To think. Panic clawed. Like before? Letters, lies? No. Hurt flashed. Clarity. I love you, Alex. But this pace, it's eroding us. He left for a week, crashing at Sarah's. Birmingham echoed empty. Becca's questions knives. He coming back? I baked through it. Loaves like therapy, each need a release. Revelation hit mid-shift, flower clouds swirling. The misunderstanding? Not betrayal, but burnout. We'd built so fast, forgotten to breathe. I drove to Macon unannounced. Found him on Sarah's porch, Elias gurgling on his knee. Missed this, he said, no defenses. Me too. We talked, raw, unfiltered, about fears of fading, love turning routine. Partners, I said. In all. He nodded, tears salting the dusk. Always. Return was renewal. Therapy doubled down. Date nights mandatory. Picnics, no phones. Becca mediated, her teen wisdom sharp. Duh, communicate. Like in books. Fall brought harvest. Elias's baptism, non-denominational, rainbows in the font water. Bakery hit milestone. 100K served. Wall of gratitude photos spanning years. But depth demands darkness. Winter whispered loss. Jose's cousin deported, a raid ripping families. We protested, dough hands turning picket signs. Douglas sketched posters. No human is illegal. Empathy deepened, our bubble pierced. Then, the gut wrench, Becca's checkup. Clear, doc said, but a shadow lingered. Relapse risk eternal. She hugged me fierce post-appointment. Proud of you, big bro. Like mom. Pride swelled, mingled with terror. That night, Douglas and I lay tangled, his breath steady on my neck. Whatever comes, he murmured. We face it baked. Baked. Broken open, resilient. America's heart, flawed, beating. Winter gripped Birmingham like a grudge, ice sheeting the streets and frosting the bakery windows into lace veils. Elias's first Christmas was a bomb. Sarah hosting, the apartment aglow with luminarias Jose smuggled from the borderlands. Becca orchestrated the gift exchange, her haul including a sketchbook from Douglas, for your stories, Oz, and a rolling pin engraved Harlan Air from me. Laughter rang, cutting the chill, but undercurrents swirled. News of raids escalating, queer shelters overwhelmed, the national pulse quickening toward division. Douglas threw himself into the graphic novel, deadlines looming like storm fronts. Tour starts post-New Year. He announced over breakfast, syrup dripping from his fork. L.A., then Chicago. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. The number echoed, a countdown. We'll manage, I said, forcing brightness for Becca's sake. She nodded, but her eyes, Mom's eyes, held worry. Management meant me solo, dough at dawn, Becca's rides, Atlanta oversight. Jose stepped up, his food truck dream paused indefinitely. Familia first, he shrugged, flipping tortillas like philosophy. The tour launch coincided with a blizzard, flights grounded, Douglas stranded in a midtown hotel. Video calls sufficed, him in rumpled tees, crowds blurring behind, me amid rising loaves. Miss your flower hands, he'd joke, but fatigue shadowed his grin. Becca journaled it. Uncle Doug's a rock star. But home's better. Home. The word anchored amid flux. I dove deeper into community, partnerships with food banks, baking workshops for trans youth fleeing Bible Belt belts. One kid, Jamie, reminded me of 16-year-old me, wide-eyed, backpack heavy with secrets. Your story? Gave me guts to call my aunt. Guts. We all borrow them. But cracks spiderwebbed. Becca's school dance loomed. Her first crush, a non-binary artist named Riley with blue-streaked hair. Can I go? With them? She asked, blush fierce. Permission tangled with protectiveness. The world still bit. Douglas, via FaceTime, mediated, go. Dance like no one's judging, cause they shouldn't. She went, emerging radiant, recounting slow dances and stolen sips of punch. Love's weird, she sighed, flopping onto the couch. But good weird. Weird and good, echoed our own. Douglas's tour wrapped triumphant, signings sold out, reviews hailing raw queer Americana. Return flight delayed again, but he surprised us. Midnight knock, snow-dusted, arms laden with LA swag. Becca tackled him. I pulled him close, tasting jet lag and joy. Told stories about us, he whispered. The real ones. Real. The theme wove tighter. Spring thawed secrets, Sarah confiding postpartum shadows, therapy referrals exchanged like recipes. We rallied, playdates with Elias turning chaotic symphonies. Jose's boy arrived too, Mateo, a chubby echo of his dad, cries harmonizing with Elias's coos. Expansion beckoned anew, Savannah outreach, coastal vibe. But hubris tempts fate. Memorial Day weekend, Atlanta store buzzed, festival catering, orders stacking like Jenga. I drove down solo, Douglas minding Birmingham, Becca at a sleepover. Midnight inventory, and the call came. Alex? It's Riley's mom. Becca's hurt. Bad. The world tilted. Highway blurred, hazards flashing like strobes. ER lights seared. Becca, pale on gurney, ankle twisted from a fall. Riley's porch, post-dance jitters turning tumble. Stupid, she mumbled, painkillers slurring. Wanted to impress. Douglas arrived an hour later, tires screeching, face etched panic. What happened? He gripped her hand, me pacing like caged. Fracture, doc said, clean break, 6 weeks boot. But the scare unearthed deeper, her whispers of mom's illness, fears of fragility. Recovery bonded us triply. Douglas sketched her cast into art, constellations linking stars. I baked bedside, ginger snaps for nausea. Becca opened up, scared you'll leave. Like dad. Like mom's sickness. We shattered then. Tears, truths. Never, Douglas vowed. Baked in. Summer simmered conflicts. National headlines screamed. Anti-LGBTQ bills stacking in state houses. Alabama's echo chamber amplifying. Protests erupted. Our bakery's donation hubs. Free fuel for marchers. But a picket formed outside Birmingham. Sodom sweets. Signs thrusting like spears. Families crossed lines, but fear nipped. Becca grounded. Just in case. The peak snapped unexpected. An invite to Millwood's Heritage Festival, Chamber of Commerce Olive Branch. Your success reflects well, the email cooed. Keynote. Rage flared. They want redemption points, I snarled to Douglas, crumpling printout. After the bricks, the slurs? He smoothed it. Or growth. Show Becca Grace wins. Debate raged. Jose for. Confront the ghost. Sarah against. Salt in wounds. Becca decided, go. For mom. Bake their hypocrisy. We went. Festivals sprawled green lawns. Booths hawking funnel cakes and flags. My booth drew stares. Old neighbors gaping. Whispers like wind. Keynote stage loomed. Mic hot. I was kicked out. I began, voice steady. For loving like this. Gesture to Douglas, hand in mine. Gasps rippled. Built from scraps. Now, I feed you all. Because America's better than fear. Applause scattered, then swelled. Becca beaming front row, Riley beside. But aftermath stung. Pastor Jenkins's successor cornered us, Bible thumping. Misguided mercy. Douglas bristled. I diffused. Mercy's not misguided. It's bread. Bread. The through line. Back home, a package waited. Mom's recipe box, willed via cousin. Yellowed cards, notes and margins. Alex's favorite. Add extra love. We cried. Baked her peach cobbler till dawn. Autumn harvested highs. Elias toddling. Mateo crawling. Family picnics sprawling parks. Douglas's book launched. Tour light. Us tagging along for signings. One night, Chicago skyline glittering. He knelt. Not ring, but sketch. Our future, bakery empire sprawling coasts. Becca grown, baking her own. Marry me? Not paper, promise. Tears blurred lines. Yes, all in. Wedding was ours. Bakery backyard, string lights and sunflowers. Jose officiated, bilingual vows. Becca ring bearer in rainbow tux. Vows echoed. Through betrayals, breaks, we rise. But humanism tempers joy. Winter returned, Elias's fever spiking. RSV scare, nights blurring hospital. We held vigil, Douglas sketching fevers away, me whispering stories. He pulled through, tiny warrior. Years layered. Becca graduated, valedictorian, art scholarship, Riley her anchor. Bakeries franchised, queer core intact, training programs, safe spaces needed in. Jose's truck rolled, Rose's empire budding. One dawn, oven humming, Douglas sidled close. From kicked out to this. Arm around waist, flower kiss. This, I echoed, heart full. Mom's photo on the wall, smiling now. Betrayal's faded scars. Love, the yeast. America, dramatic, divided, deeply human. We baked through, fed forward. And that, pure grace,